The current Colorado Avalanche, Nate MacKinnon, broke through and won his first league MVP. As we look at the Avs, their comings and goings in this offseason, interesting, because it was not long ago, just a couple of years now, that the Avalanche got to the top, the mountaintop, with Jared Bednar winning the Stanley Cup. As we look at the adds on the left, the subtractions on the right, quite a bit of change for the Avalanche. What jumps out at you, Stu?
Well, I like the Brandstrom transaction. I really do. Ever since the World Junior Tournament where I saw Brandstrom, representing his nation, his country, he really showed us a lot. I don't think it's fully transferred to this point. And I'll tell you, for a guy that gets an opportunity in another organization, a lot of times, it's not necessarily the skill set that an athlete brings. It's how that skill set is integrated into a new organization, a new structure. I'm interested to see what Brandstrom looks like as a member of this roster in earnest going forward. One transaction that doesn't show up on that board, Casey Mittelstadt, to me was a great that's a great signing. That's a great acquisition for this team. Since the Stanley Cup Championship, where this group was MacKinnon, Kadri down the middle, they have longed to kind of get back to that kind of that structure, that backbone down the middle. I don't know that Casey Mittelstadt gets you all the way there, but this is an opportunity for him. Now, starting at the beginning of the NHL calendar, the origins of the cycle, and he'll be there for camp. He'll be there for, the exhibition season and into the start of the regular season. I think this is an important year for Casey Mittelstadt. I do believe we'll see, maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 15 or more. We'll see a measurable uptick in his contribution. 9 points in 11 playoff games, and that's when it matters most, when so many of the Avs stars step to the fore. I'm thinking of Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon. Also, Jonathan Drouin. I root for the guys that have a comeback as part of their origin story. This young man has been through a lot, and boy, did he contribute a lot at times for the Avs this past season. Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's a hard set of circumstances. When you're drafted high, there's a whole lot of expectation that comes along with that. And I'll tell you, for anybody that's experienced it in a way that Drouin has, to have not measured up to that expectation, to that, that outward standard that a lot of folks are holding you to, but just to get some separation from that, and when somebody like Drouin, when your character starts to take over, when you've been able to yank yourself up by the bootstraps and move through that, I think he's now at a place where he's more hardened, he's more experienced, he's probably a little more humble at the end of the day, and a far better understanding of what it takes to be a contributor night to night. And he's been placed in an environment, again, another landing spot for a guy like Drouin to be able to succeed. Again, I call it kind of a reclamation project to some degree, but, I think that Drouin is really, he's measured up to that standard. He's met that challenge, and I think really added a lot where this roster is concerned, but a pretty savvy transaction from the top. Very productive coming down the stretch, 40 points, last 44 games. You saw when we put up the goal leaders, the guy who's second, he's amazing. Mikko Rantanen, let's talk contract. His value is unquestioned. Yeah. Obviously, Gabe Landeskog, there were key pieces that helped them win the Stanley Cup. The Moose was one of them. Mikko Rantanen, his value and his price tag, what do you see? Rantanen kind of, I suppose, stepped onto NHL ice several years ago, maybe going back 7 or 8 now. It took him 3 years plus to kind of establish himself. There was a breakthrough moment, I want to say 2016, 2017, got 90-ish points for the first time in his career, and everybody's sitting up straight. Bona fide superstar, and he's been that ever since. He is a mainstay on this roster. What a Draisaitl brings to the Edmonton roster, Rantanen brings to this Colorado Avalanche roster. Great big body, hard to defend against, really sturdy on his skates. Scores with regularity, of course, but a guy that in a much larger frame gets it done. With the kind of offensive production that, guys that are typically in that 6'1", 195, bring a whole lot more speed. He's just a really interesting, offensive threat to watch manage a game. He's a lot to deal with on the other side.
A lot to deal with. Thin air. Think about it. You're a mile high. These bodies are flying. Whether it's him or Nathan MacKinnon, that's a tough team to beat at home, as we saw this past season.